The South China Sea is a region that, for most of us, exists in the abstract. It's a distant name on a news ticker, a geopolitical flashpoint that feels far removed from our daily realities. You've heard the diplomatic warnings, the sterile talk of freedom of navigation, but you've probably convinced yourself that these are problems for politicians and generals, not for everyday Americans. You believe that what happens thousands of miles away in a quiet part of the Pacific stays thousands of miles away. You believe your family, your job, and your financial security are insulated from the slow, grinding conflicts of foreign powers. If you're interested in this topic, hit the like button, subscribe, and type "interested" in the comments, and I will give you a heart. But what if that deeply held belief is a dangerous illusion? What if a series of small, seemingly insignificant events in a far-off ocean are the biggest threat to your financial security since the global financial crisis? What if a quiet, hidden war has been unfolding that could directly impact your family's safety, your retirement savings, and, more importantly, the cost of every single product in your home, from your smartphone to your groceries? Because the latest news is this: the US sends warships to support Philippines after China's aggression, and their presence isn't just a political statement. It's a desperate act of strategic necessity to protect the global supply chain, the very nervous system that keeps your entire life running, from the microchips in your electronics to the gasoline in your car and the food on your table. Think of the South China Sea not as a body of water, but as the planet's most critical economic highway. That's how much of a trade artery that more than a third of all global trade, a staggering $5.3 trillion, 0 cents worth of goods, travels through this sea every single year. It's the economic artery that delivers everything from the raw materials that build our homes to the finished goods that fill our stores. China is trying to put up a permanent, unnegotiable roadblock on this highway. They're using relentless bully tactics, a strategy known as salami slicing, to claim it as their own private property. Now, the world's most powerful naval force, the US, has just pulled up to the scene, sirens blaring. This isn't just a political standoff, this is a battle for control over the global economy. And if the wrong side wins, you will feel it in your wallet, in the rising cost of groceries, in the availability of the products you rely on every day. Your financial future is directly tied to the freedom of these waters. Like this video to help more people understand the real stakes of this conflict. Over the next couple of minutes, we're not just going to talk about warships and geopolitics, we're going to talk about you, your family, and your future. We will expose the shocking hidden intelligence that finally forced America's hand. We will tell you the incredible untold story of the Filipino people who are standing up to a Goliath, and we'll expose a quiet, hidden Chinese economic retaliation that the media is entirely missing. We'll show you why this isn't just a story about international conflict, but a powerful, personal lesson in resilience that you can apply to your own life and your family's future. But first, there's a secret about this deployment that goes far beyond any public statement. A truth so alarming, it forced the president to make a decision in a single tense night. We'll reveal what it was and the specific event that triggered it in a minute. The story begins in the shallow turquoise waters of the West Philippine Sea. For generations, Filipino fishermen have lived off these waters. Their ancestors have fished here for centuries, a way of life passed down from father to son. This is not just a job, it's an identity. But in recent years, that way of life has been under a relentless, calculated threat from China. It's a strategy known as gray zone aggression, and it's something you need to understand because it's a playbook that could be used against any nation, including our own. Gray zone aggression is a calculated campaign that exists in the ambiguous space between peace and all-out war. It's a slow-motion invasion that never crosses the threshold that would justify a full military response. It's like a neighbor who every day moves their fence 1 inch further into your yard. They don't attack you with a bomb, they just make your life a little more difficult, a little more miserable, until you're too exhausted and too demoralized to fight back. In the South China Sea, this takes the form of relentless bullying. The Chinese use their massive, powerful military and Coast Guard ships, their big guys, to intimidate smaller, unarmed Filipino boats. They block fishing grounds that the Filipino fishermen have used for centuries, effectively starving them of their livelihood. They fire high-powered water cannons at resupply boats attempting to bring food and rotation crews to a small Filipino military detachment on a grounded naval ship, the BRP Sierra Madre, which serves as a symbolic outpost, and most disturbingly, they use blinding military-grade lasers. Imagine being a simple fisherman trying to feed your family and a massive gray-hulled ship with an automatic cannon on its bow, points a laser at you, temporarily blinding your crew and disabling your instruments. This isn't a dispute over fishing rights. It's an act of psychological warfare designed to break a nation's will. And if you're finding this important, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We go beyond the headlines to bring you the stories that truly matter to your future. The situation became even more dire when China began constructing artificial islands on top of submerged reefs and atolls. They're essentially building their own territory where none existed before, in violation of international law. They're like unsinkable aircraft carriers, complete with runways, radar systems, and missile launchers. These islands give China direct physical control over shipping routes and the power to monitor every movement in the area. They have placed military-grade jammers and sensors on these outposts, capable of disrupting satellite communications and GPS navigation, the very tools the global shipping industry relies on. For the Philippines, this is not only a blatant violation of its sovereignty, but a daily existential risk for its citizens at sea. It's a permanent threat, a fortress built on sand to dominate the waves and choke off a nation's economic and security lifeline. But here's why this matters to you personally in a way you can feel in your bank account and your family's financial future. The South China Sea is the most important shipping lane on the planet. Over $5 trillion, 0 cents worth of global trade passes through these waters every year. That's more than the entire GDP of Germany. It's the highway that brings you everything you own. If that conveyor belt gets jammed, the shelves in your own country will be empty. Prices of everything from your electronics and clothing to your gasoline and coffee will skyrocket. This isn't a theory, it's already starting to happen. Insurance premiums for ships passing through these waters have gone up by over 50% in the last year alone. Shipping companies are already looking for more expensive, longer routes, rerouting ships around Australia, a journey that adds weeks and astronomical costs to every shipment. This means higher costs that are eventually passed directly on to you, the consumer. The rising tension in the South China Sea is, in effect, a hidden tax on every American family. It's an invisible line item on every receipt. And while the world was focused on this high-stakes standoff, a single, shocking intelligence report landed on a top general's desk. It wasn't just a ramming. It wasn't just a water cannon. It was a discovery so specific and so alarming that it forced the president's hand and changed the entire diplomatic playbook overnight. We'll reveal what it was in a minute, but first, let's explore the deep historical and psychological reasons why the US felt it had no choice but to act. The arrival of American warships, powerful symbols of strength and commitment, was not a random move. It was a decision rooted in history, law, and a decades-old partnership. For over 70 years, the United States and the Philippines have shared a mutual defense treaty signed in 1951. This is not just a piece of paper. It is like two neighbors signing a binding contract that says if anyone messes with your property, I'll have your back. The US is honoring that commitment. It's a message to the world that promises still matter. It's a commitment forged in the fire of World War II, when the Filipino people fought side by side with American troops against an imperial aggressor. The history between these two nations is not just political, it's a story of shared sacrifice and blood spilled on the battlefield, a bond forged in a struggle against tyranny. But there was more to it than just a treaty. This is where we get to the secret that forced the president's hand. The specific intelligence report that wasn't released to the public detailed something far more advanced and dangerous than just a ramming incident. It confirmed a new, highly sophisticated Chinese tactic: the use of advanced, high-powered, non-lethal weapons, specifically electromagnetic pulse devices, to temporarily disable the electronics, radar, and communication systems of Filipino naval crews. This was no longer a gray zone of intimidation. This was a direct, military-grade attack that crossed a red line. The report made it clear: if the US didn't respond, China would believe it could escalate to a full-blown military blockade of the entire South China Sea. And that, my friends, is a threat to every single person watching this video. A blockade would be a global catastrophe that would trigger an economic depression unlike anything we've ever seen. It would shut down factories, empty stores, and cause the price of gas to skyrocket to unprecedented levels. If you've ever found our analysis helpful, please share this video with one friend. Spreading this message is how we fight for the truth. The US sends warships to support Philippines after China's aggression, not to start a war, but to prevent one. Their presence is a massive floating line in the sand, a simple message to Beijing: you can't do this anymore, not to our allies and not to the global economy. This is called deterrence. Think of it as a high-stakes poker game. China made a bold bluff and the US just called it, raising the stakes with a full fleet of warships. They are letting China know that any further aggression will be met with an appropriate and overwhelming response. It's a high-stakes high-stakes game of chicken played with aircraft carriers, and the entire world is holding its breath. The psychological principle behind this is simple. To be effective, a threat must be credible and costly to the aggressor. By showing up with overwhelming force, the US is signaling that any next move by China will carry a cost too high to bear. And the world is watching. If Washington stayed silent while its allies faced such blatant aggression, it would send a dangerous signal. Allies across the globe, from Europe to the Middle East, would begin to doubt American support. This is about global credibility. If America's word means nothing in the South China Sea, then it means nothing anywhere. The latest news out of this region isn't just regional, it's a global litmus test for who holds the power in the 21st century. And make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss our upcoming deep dives into this conflict. While the world was focused on the naval standoff, China initiated a new type of covert retaliation. It wasn't a military move, it was a hidden economic counterpunch that could affect the cost of your electronics, from laptops to game consoles, and most people missed it entirely. What was it and why did they choose this specific target? We'll answer that next, but first, we need to talk about the real heroes of this story. The brave men and women on the front lines, the Filipino people, whose struggle is a mirror for our own. You've heard about the warships. You've heard about the economic stakes. But what you haven't heard is the human story at the heart of this conflict. While the media was focused on the naval standoff, China executed its secret economic counterpunch. They didn't target the US directly. That would be too obvious and would risk direct retaliation. Instead, they placed crippling new trade restrictions on a crucial rare earth mineral used in the manufacturing of semiconductors, a mineral primarily exported by a third country. This mineral, called neodymium, is essential for everything from your smartphone speakers to the hard drive in your computer. By placing restrictions, China signaled to the world that it can slow down global tech production and cause supply chain headaches for everyone, all while keeping their hands clean of a direct military confrontation. It's a new type of global warfare, fought not with missiles, but with supply chains. What do you think will happen next? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And in the middle of all of this are the brave Filipino people. The fisherman like Arnel, who was chased for 8 days by Chinese ships but refused to give up his ancestral fishing grounds. The young men and women of the Philippine Coast Guard, armed with cameras and courage, who document every act of aggression for the world to see, knowing they could be rammed or fired upon at any moment. They are not just pawns in a great power struggle, they are the heart of this fight. This is the truth that needs to be heard. We've put together a resource in the description with more details on the Filipino Coast Guard's incredible bravery. Check it out and give their story a like. This is the ultimate payoff. The fight for the South China Sea isn't about islands, it's a fight for human dignity. It's a battle to prove that no nation, no matter how small, should be bullied out of its own home. And for the Filipino people, the arrival of the US warships is not just about military protection, it's a symbol of hope. It's a sign that the world has not forgotten them. It's a confirmation that their defiance, their persistence, and their willingness to stand up for what's right is not a lonely act. It's a moment of shared purpose. This is the climactic moment of this unfolding drama. The standoff in the South China Sea proves that even in the face of unimaginable pressure, the human spirit, when united, can stand up to overwhelming force. The US and the Philippines are allies not just because of a treaty, but because they believe in the same core idea, that freedom, dignity, and international law are worth defending. The latest news from this region is a testament to the idea that a single nation, when it has the courage of its convictions, can stand tall and make the entire world notice. It's a signal that the era of uncontested aggression is over. This isn't the end of the story, it's just the beginning of a new, more dangerous chapter. The takeaway is this: peace is not a given. It's something that must be actively defended, and sometimes the price of that defense is higher than we can imagine. But the story of the Filipino people shows us that when we stand up for our principles, when we refuse to be intimidated, we become an inspiration to the rest of the world. So what's next for you? The next time you hear about a distant geopolitical conflict, don't just dismiss it. Ask yourself, how does this affect my life? Because more often than not, the answer is directly. If you want to know which other countries are standing with the Philippines and which are siding with China, check out this video here. We broke down the global alignments in detail, and it's a perfect next step to understand the bigger picture. And if you're still here, thank you. You're one of the few who understands that information is power. And by liking and subscribing, you help us keep digging for the truth. Don't forget to watch that next video. Stay informed, stay vigilant, and stay safe. See you in the next video.